Many of us are drawn to spiritual work because of an inner call that pulls us towards this familiar, though sometimes elusive, open spaciousness. The irony is that this open spaciousness is nothing special. It is unparalleled in its manifest simplicity. At times, especially in contrast to our normally rigid, contracted, limited view of being, it can seem lavishly decadent, but not in the way of earthly sensorial pleasures. It's decadent in that it's synonymous with the delicious vibrancy of life. Life itself can be and is this delicious vibrancy. This vibrancy resonates down to the core of each glowing molecule, which selflessly contributes its tiny but necessary part in the fabrication of this transient appearance. And it does so without ever asking for compensation or once questioning its role, not imagining a job that is more exalted or important. It simply performs its function, diligently contributing to the vitality of the organism, with no idea that it could venture outside of its system or station. So it does what it does and remains saturated in that delicious vibrancy. If every molecule of this ever-changing body is saturated in it, then every neuron, every muscle fiber, every hormonal cocktail must be experiencing nothing but this decadent wonderfulness. And we all must feel it right now. How could we not? It is always only right here and has never been nor could be anywhere else. The marvelous can only be subdued by the contracted isolation of individualistic thought. To be clear, not all thoughts are life-destroying, but this appearance must learn to distinguish between the real and the foundation of the purely illusory. We could say that learning this distinction takes time, but that is merely another illusion of individualistic thought. Does one of those delighted molecules tick away the seconds like we do, waiting for our workday to end? Or are they afloat in an ever-present sea of a timeless now? What then is ejecting you from that timeless now into the churning whirlpool of hours, days, and years? Resist the urge to find a raft in this river and allow the whirlpool to suck you down. It's only through that whirlpool of time that we can discover the timeless. We can't circumvent this whirlpool because it will always remain hidden in the threshold of our thoughts. It will remain as an unchecked belief, lurking in the recesses of our mind where it will live out a cozy, contrived existence, free from the scrutiny that would bring its reign to an end. Now, it's better to stare it straight in the eye and surrender. Yeah. Surrender to the current of time's illusion, so it will draw you further into its depths and show you how shallow it actually is. This is the only way that you can discover that this terrifying whirlpool of time is just a flat disk that never moves, nor rotates, nor pulls you anywhere. You can never be anywhere but here, and here is floating in a river of timelessness. No doubt you've heard these ideas before. Cliches are only an attempt to grasp that which will remain forever ungraspable. But the more you hear the cliches, the more their truth begins to seep its way underneath the resistance of the indoctrinated mind. It was indoctrinated by cliches that were not true, but that served a purpose for the family, society, and culture in which it was raised. It was stained by all of the skewed belief systems that were inherited without once being questioned. It was stained by the unspoken pressure to conform that was implied by friends, peers, parents, the disapproving looks of strangers who seemed to see and know us, our actions, and what we were thinking, and cast their judgment upon us without using a single word. The mind has been conditioned from every interaction it's had with human, animal, plant, or element. It did not form itself in a void, though the void is, ironically, its deepest nature. It was instead filled, covered up, and made whole by all of the lessons, kind and cruel, that it was taught. All of the lines of assumptions it drew from the disconnected dots of unrelated events that suddenly seemed to create a recognizable pattern, one which said that it was separate and wrong, never good enough, unworthy, in need of fixing. On and on the assumptions go, based off of nothing but its own insecurities and need to find patterns in the random. Our task now, as we begin to see these patterns at play in our lives, is to decondition the mind. Take what was once seemingly whole and render it down into its basic elements, to see that none of them can withstand the scrutiny of a wise gaze. They all dissolve in the light of clear awareness. Stepping back to observe these patterns from a distance, where do they currently exist? Not in your memories or the stories you might delight or dismay in replaying. Where can they be found in this timeless now? Where is the mind which has been stained and made whole? This thing which has been shaped by external forces and which now goes on to shape internal experience in its own image. Can you actually find it? Not its elements, which might appear as discrete sense faculties or muddled thoughts in all of their different guises. But where do you find the mind itself? That substrate, which lies beneath the chaos of its fabricated appearances. Can it be found? Of course not. The mind is simply another concept. What underlies all of these passing manifestations of thought or sensation is nothing but emptiness. Another concept, to be sure, but one which is useful as a pointer past what we take to be the reality of our mundane world, with all of its actors playing their chosen roles. It points down, past the mind, into that deeper, spacious openness, which underlies all thought. Eventually, we can discard even of emptiness, but first use its light to illuminate the fact that nothing, even the assumed substrate of mind, does not exist. Like the whirlpool of time does not exist. Like the separate individual self does not exist. Like craving and aversion, space, and any vestige of identity does not and cannot exist. Absolutely nothing may remain outside of a fleeting thought which needs no foundation on which to stand. Thoughts arise from this nameless void we call emptiness and pass back into that emptiness. What more do you need to know? How would anything else free you from these concepts? And who is it who must be freed? In the end, all of these words, like all words, have been meaningless. but they point to something bearing the aroma of truth. They point to the simplicity of life, which is available in any moment when the mind, recognizing its own non-existence, becomes still. And in that stillness arises the simplicity of any given moment. The seeming complexity of a bustling universe is a byproduct of the dense quagmire of habitual conceptualization. When we become still, we encounter for the first time this subtle simplicity. And as the thin, flat, vivid, yet nearly monochromatic simplicity of any given instant is witnessed, we encounter the greatest miracle of our unexplored world. We encounter the inherent contentment, which is the primary hallmark of conscious experience. This is not a blissful, rapturous state, which is always a temporary phenomenon, a peak with a valley certain to follow. This is rather the calm contentment of a moment when nothing needs to be in any way different from how it currently is. It is that simple. It is that easy. It is the contentment of a young Siddhartha Gautama resting in the shade of an apple tree, watching his father toil pleasantly in the field. Not a worry yet known to his mind, feeling the absolute tranquility of body and spirit. This is what is available beneath the ever-present stirring of the desirous, aversive mind, the one which creates all dualities and dysfunction. Lose the you that believes in separation. Lose the belief in a you who could be separate, and separation will spontaneously collapse with no belief to support it. In this losing and collapsing, you will then find this pristine contentment, which waits just on the other side of that tragic misapprehension, in which it was once believed that there could ever be anything but this.